Hello and welcome to another episode of Invalid Entry. Today I was actually going to be really psyched about building and showing off this transition program thing that we're doing. I'm very sorry if I've got a low frame rate at the moment. It's because I'm still waiting for my webcam to arrive. Basically, this video took a few unexpected turns. I want to talk about the architecture of these transitions. You can see it going on really nicely. And I built a prototype of it which did not perform as I wanted to. The transition worked exactly as I wanted, but the speed of the transition, the frame rate went all the way down to about 1 frame a second, which really wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted to do was have, as in previous videos, I have these multiple screens. I'm going to be building multiple screens, and then what happens is I want to be able to, instead of just going bang on the next screen now, I want to be able to transition from one screen to the next screen. So the way this works is basically, in my code, I have that, it's time to flip over, have a new current screen. What I'm doing is I'm taking the render from the last frame of the previous screen. I'm getting 1 frame of the next screen, and I'm developing these transitions called transition class, which will take both those frames and the frame rate, and I want it to take about a second to transition, so it goes shrunk, so it has a nice smooth transition. As you see behind me, I've not got it running, and it just goes click, click between the screens about once every 10 seconds. It goes chunk, and it's on the next screen. As you can see on the video here, up and around, and I'm just going to turn Discord off. I did put myself on no notifications, but obviously Discord ignores that and just beeps at you. Apologies. You see here this transition is working really nicely. Now when I built it, and now it's just going to beep from my phone in my pocket instead, so that's right next to the microphone. Just get rid of that. So professional. So yeah, basically these transitions are working really nicely now. Now when I built it, it didn't work at all. And what I built originally was I was actually trying to build some square transitions, and what I will just do, this is the code for the transition. So basically, to very, very quickly show what I've changed in here, I've reordered this so that it now calls wipe. It sort of gets the old screen, it remembers the old screen for a moment before deleting it, and basically grabs 1 more frame from the old screen, 1 more frame from the new screen, and then jumps into this transition phase, where it sits, and it actually sits in a loop for itself for the rate. I'm currently locking it to 15 frames a second, so it will do 1 second's worth of loop here, or rather 15 frames. It may be more than a second. And this is after talking to actually the Norwich Python Community, and there's a guy there called Kev Sturman, who really just went, have you looked at pixel array? And I was like, the pixel array is just a wrapper, and that's what the documentation says. It's just a wrapper around Pygame. Turns out it's actually stupidly fast. Like if I didn't slow this down, it would just go bam, finished. The transition would be done in microseconds. So I'll go talk about this in a second. My original code was much longer. What I was doing was I was actually breaking the entire display down into squares of about 15 pixels. 30 pixels was too big, 15 was about right. And then working out the average colour. So I was getting this like block effect, and then I was transitioning the colours like an old-fashioned morph from one screen to the next screen. And what I did was when I ran this, it basically ran at 1 frame a second, and it looked pretty cool. It was quite nice, but it wasn't working well. When I changed it to this PX rate, and what I'll do very quickly is I'll just flip these two over. And I'm doing these very block copy, rename, blocks. That was behind the camera, I think, so you didn't see what I just did, but I just basically renamed the file out and run it again. What you should see here is the first animation is actually, it's a bit where the first one actually goes to itself, because it actually goes to the input screen twice. So this is the animation, and then it's done. Now this is using the Pygame copy again. I might have to just check I put the there you go. There's a really high speed, but it freezes for a second up front because it's calculating what all the average pixels values are. And then when it transitions really nicely and smooth to the next one. That's using this Pygame copy. What I found was, and I was stumped, so I wrote this code originally, and by the way, because I'm in this loop, because I'm in this sort of loop here, I'm not processing Pygame events, so the exit, if you hit exit or something like that, it won't process it until the next time it drops out and goes back into the main loop on the outside. You shouldn't really have tight loops like this, but I kind of want to for my transitions. So what is now in blocks 2, it does all this fancy work. If I went back and actually get rid of that, and put in my original draw, functions. And I tried various things. I optimized it. I checked my code. When I was checking this and trying to optimize it, I basically got to the point where I couldn't optimize it anymore. And I went back to these guys and said, look, this is what I'm trying to do. It looks really cool, but it takes too long. It doesn't work. And literally, Kev was like, have you looked at this? And I looked at it and went, yeah, it's just a wrapper. It's not going to speed up my access to the individual pixels. And it turns out it is blindingly fast, like literally lightning fast. And that's actually crashed because I need to... all these beeps, it's almost like I didn't actually bother silencing my notifications. I definitely did. That's actually .draw. Okay, here we go. And this is the transition if you're not using that thing. And as you see here, it's lightning fast. Like this is with the .draw method, it basically seems to be running at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's about 1 frame every 6 seconds to get this transition. There's 15 frames. It's taking forever to get that through. So let's just kill that one. And that's basically drawing the rectangles in as rectangles. If we don't do that, if we actually go through and loop and actually set every pixel by hand, which it sounds daft, but actually this set is basically going to set the new colour. So instead of setting rectangles by splitting in rectangles, this actually runs faster. And I'm really quite surprised that this method runs faster. And it's calculating the colours should be. And then, as you can see, there's a significantly faster, like blip, blip, blip. You can't just not change the screen right now because it's transitioning to itself. Let's go for the full 15 here, and it'll wait 3 seconds before going to the other screen. Okay, that was 15 frames, and then it should go nowish. Here we go. So it goes into its transition. So this is actually looping over every single pixel on the screen and setting every single pixel individually. And it's slow. It's really slow when you consider this is a 1080 or a 1280p screen or whatever it is. It seems incredibly slow. So the answer is to not do that and actually use this PX array. Comment all that out like that. Put this PX array. The PX array basically is activating that screen buffer as a pixel array, and it basically allows you to do selections of squares using these effectively two-dimensional selection objects, and then just assign the color to all those pixels in there. So in effect, it's still setting all those memory locations in exactly the same way, but it runs so much faster. Without going into a lot of the detail about why it does this, and to be honest with you, I still don't fully understand myself why it does all these individual elements. The main thing I want to talk about here is that it doesn't matter how good you are at programming, you can still really get really deep into a project and just, I was sitting there going thinking, I'm going to completely, either this was impossible to run at this frame rate, or I'm going to completely rethink how I was going to do this, like maybe pre-render or chop images up. I was sitting there going, the architecture what I built just isn't going to work. And what I did was I went to the community and said, look, the community just been a bunch of guys and girls that I know, they're my friends, and say, this is what I'm trying to do, what do you think? And it can be just a throwaway comment from absolutely anyone saying, have you looked at this? And you've got to take those suggestions and go, yes or no, or I have looked at it, or I think this is the problem, or whatever. In this case, it was just, have you looked at this? And I looked at it, and I looked at the thing, I was like, it's a wrapper around the function, and I'll hunt out the exact documentation it is. Pygame pixel array. It literally says at the top of here, let's blow that screen up a bit, the pixel array wraps the surface. And anything that to me that says wraps the surface sort of tells me it's not going to be as efficient as accessing the underlying anyway. Usually wrapper functions hide some of the detail to make your life easier. But this doesn't seem to do that. This wraps it in a way, I think the word wrap is a bit suspicious. It actually seems to really allow you to access it in a high speed. So I was really thinking, this isn't going to really speed anything up. Until I was looking through here the examples and realised you can do really evil things like this, which is select a box of pixels and then assign the colours. But you can also do things where you're selecting every other pixel, or every 5th pixel, or every 15th pixel. And that led me to very quickly realise I could write incredibly efficient wipes or very incredibly efficient transforms like this. And what this is going to do is basically slam the original screen on, just like drop the first screen onto it, and then say what we're going to do is convert both that and then into a pixel array. So we've got pixel arrays of both. And what I'm going to do is basically say I want to set every 15th pixel starting at 0. So 0, 15th pixel. I want to copy from the new array to the old array. So I get the first line of the new screen. It'll just display that, delay itself how many milliseconds to go into the next one. And then it goes, now what I want to do is I want to start at position 1 and copy every 15th. So it will now copy basically the vertical lines, because it happens to rotate exactly on the 15th pixel. The vertical lines, and then it will move on and copy those lines. But because I haven't filled the screen with black, I've still got the original, the last frame there. So I still have the vertical line of the new screen plus 14 lines of the old screen. After the second loop, I have 2 lines of the new screen and 13 lines of the new screen, and so on. And that's what makes this particular version, if I rename these back to being my file names again, rename this to being blocks.py. And run it. What you'll see here is that's literally what's happening. You get 15 lines and it will wipe across into the new frame. No, it didn't. That one did the wrong one. Did I actually save that? No. Hold on. I just renamed it back to itself. There we go. Cancel that, run it again. What you should get now is these nice transitions, but it really means that I can now transition nicely between scenes or in the game we're writing with Tom, but it means that you can start adding a bit more flexibility to how you're beginning to go from one. So if you know what the next render is going to be, you can then add these transitions in. But you can really be creative in what works efficiently without thinking too hard about I want a particular transition. If you're a bit more flexible, there's some really cool things you can do by saying, oh, I know I'm just going to loop with these PyPixels. And it works fast. It looks good. It feels good. The one thing you've got to remember is that that using my trick of going into a separate class to do the transition means you're not going to be processing the main Pygame events. You could get around that by actually moving all your Pygame event processing into a function, and then you could still process Pygame events in there. But you've got to be careful if one of those events is going to cause a screen transition of its own. You might not want to do that because you don't want to actually transition halfway through doing a transition. That would be weird or could cause issues. For me, for message, for example, my web message system comes in that second. It will just get handled on the very first frame you're in. So yeah, that's it. That's the entire video for today. 12 minutes long. I'm sorry for the beeps and whistles and things. I just want to, again, just reiterate, if you're having problems, talk about them, have a break, sit down, chat with people. You'll be amazed at who's interested in what you're doing. Even if it's not something they know a lot about, or even if it's something they know an awful lot about, they may have an idea or an insight that just might break you out of whatever, pitch you're in, kind of going, I don't know how this is going to work. I've got it working as a prototype. For me, I like to get it working as a prototype myself and say, well, this is what's wrong with that, and then iterate. So I build one to throw away, and then I build something which is just as cool or better. You will start seeing me build more transitions. There'll be a flex, like pick a transition that will use a transition, and it'll be random. So I'm going to build more transitions. I'm also going to go away and build a few more screens because I'm going to put my calendar on here and I'm going to put some of my system alerts on here as well. So I've got system performance as well. So that may appear before another episode happens. And that's it. So if you're enjoying these videos, please hit like, please hit subscribe. If you've got any comments or queries or any questions, please hit me up. I'm also on Twitter at jmons. So yeah, I'd be delighted to hear. And thank you once again to Kev, because he really sorted me out last night. I was like, this isn't going to work, throw it away. And at the end of it, I've got this cool little transition thing going on. So thank you very much.